Hello everybody, welcome out to the Collective. My name is Del Salvador and this is Current 93, the Inmost Light. All three of them, in fact. All three! Now, Current 93 is a folk, experimental band fronted by David Tibet. I'm pretty sure he's his name. I'm pretty sure he's the frontman. He's at least the vocalist. And I'm pretty sure Chris Stapleton, Nurse with Wound, is also a part of this. At least, I don't know if he's an official member, but sources tell me that pretty much every release or almost every release he's had some contributions. So it's almost the Beatles at this point where it's an unofficial member, but still pretty much a member. Um, and I do love me some Nurse Lafoon. He's one of my favorite experimental artists out there. And at least with the third installment in this trilogy, you definitely see um, his influence shining the most on the third installment. But we'll get to that later. First, we're gonna look at the first in the trilogy. Was a Long Shadows Fall. Now, I think I didn't look any of this up because it's also really hard to find, next to impossible. But from what it seems, this seems to be a concept trilogy. And I do know from other tracks and other sources that David Tibet really there's I forget his name. It's an author he's really a fan of, and he's regarded as like a modern day Lovecraft kind of thing, and you can definitely see that in some of his writing on tracks, not from this series, but there's a completely separate track. It's a very famous one of the more infamous songs called "I Have a Special Plan for This World," and that one has a very Lovecraftian, apocalyptic feel. I mean, you get more of that as well on these three installments of this trilogy. Now, the first installment and the last installment are both EPs, and then the second installment in the middle is a full album. And the EPs are both one song, about 22 minutes each. At least for this first one, it paints a really nice picture. We have a lot of cool samples going on, but I feel like it drags on a little longer than it should. And that's not because I don't like long songs. I'm a big fan of Swans, right? There's songs I listen to that are like, 7 minutes, 10 minutes, 17 minutes, 24 minutes, 35, 42 hour long songs, right? And it's not a patience thing, but I feel like there's not enough going on in this song to justify a whole 22 minutes. 15 minutes, sure, it'd be great. I feel like it's very pretty and very ethereal and a little eerie at times, but I don't think it needs 22 minutes. It kind of drags on a little bit. I think if they cut it down a little bit, it'd be a lot better. Well, not a lot better, but it wouldn't get as boring because you can have a really cool song, right? But if it goes on a little long and it gets a little boring, it almost undermines the rest of the experience in a way. It's very odd how the brain and bias work sometimes. But either way, we have a lot of cool things going on here. We have it's really pulsating what sounds like brass and strings throughout the album. We have a vocal sample, and there's not a lot of information on this, so I'm probably wrong. I sometimes am. Everyone is, but from my understanding, there's a type of singing that is very old, and there's only one existing recording of this type of singing, and they sampled this singing on here. I think it starts with a C, not Castro, but some kind of singing, right? And you have that going throughout the entire piece, right? And then you have all this stuff on top, kind of separate from it. So it's just kind of there, and it has a it gives a dissonant quality to everything, right? And the stuff on top is very beautiful, but because you have this sample creating this dissonance on the bottom, right? It just the whole thing kind of sounds dissonant, right? And they do a really cool thing near the end where they take out that sample and everything else is still doing its thing, and all of a sudden it sounds way more beautiful, and it just totally changes the color of it. But that being said, if we go to the loose concept of this trilogy, again, we have this very, Lovecraftian, apocalyptic kind of theme, all centered around, darkness, specifically after sunset. And And I believe, judging by the album art and just the sonic palette that this provides, this is, the sunset moment in this story. It's very beautiful, very common, very tranquil, very a little eerie, but peaceful in a sense. You have these choir vocals here and there. You have some spoken word by David Tibet. You have, like I said, like the singing sample in the background very quietly. That's barely audible most of the time, but it's audible enough to hear. And you have all these factors going on, right? And it just it slowly builds up, kind of pulses back and forth, and then it slowly fades out. And it is really nice. It's a really nice song. I just wish it was a little shorter. Besides that, we have the second in the trilogy, the album All the Pretty Little Horses. Now, this album has a lot going on in it. It has some of the most folk-centered songs I've heard from them to this point, with tracks like the Bloodbells Chime, which is an amazing, beautiful song with some piano and some violin or viola, some kind of, string instrument in there. You have some flamenco-ish guitar on the song This Carnival is Dead and Gone. You have the first track is a continuation of the first EP, and it kind of references it back, The Long Shadow Falls. And this is kind of like the sunset moment where, the shadows, they kind of grow in a sense, right? You have the second track, All the Pretty Little Horsies. It's a whispered, creepy lullaby, but not that creepy, but still a little bit. And then you have Calm for Vanished Faces, which is, I forget. There's a lot of things going on, so I'm not gonna actually mention names at this point, but I'll just mention a bunch of things. You have some really folk-centered songs. I think it's the Inmost Night, I think it's the Inmost Night, where you have these. It's that or the track before, Calm for Vanished Faces 1, and you have these. It's all of a sudden very minor key with these odd drones in the back, and you have this very detuned, very creepy piano, and then there's a lot of different colors on this album, a lot of different palettes, right? Then you have songs like Twilight, Nihil, where it's an 8-minute song that gradually descends into more and more sonic chaos with screaming, and there's a lot of other things about. You have Nick Cave on the last two tracks, or the second to last, or the last one of those. I forget if he's on the last two or one of them, but you have Nick Cave making an appearance, and on one of the tracks near the end, you get the same lullaby again. I think read by Nick Cave. And some of the lyrics are changed to be more creepy and more, unsettling. And all in all, it's a fantastic album. Really is. I forget if I gave it a 9. I think I gave it a 9 out of 10. There's very little I'd change about it, but it is excellent. I feel like on some tracks, David Tibet's voice doesn't exactly fit. On others it does. But almost every track here provides something new. And even if it's not providing something new, all the tracks are at least entertaining and engaging, especially if you're listening to what he's saying. The reason I say loose concept is because there seems to be people, like he references names or like, mother of this or, that kind of stuff, right? And there's something about going somewhere and then doing something there or something, but they're never specifically alluded to, I don't think. And even then, like you don't get any names, you'll just get like their father or something like that, right? So I don't know if this is an already existing story that he's referencing, and if you read the story, then it makes sense. But I say loose concept for that reason. And then we have the final installment, the final EP, another 22-minute song. The stars are marching sadly home, and if the first EP is like the sunset moment, right? All the Pretty Little Horses is that transitionary period where the sun is currently setting, going down below the horizon, and this is afterwards. This is basically the sun is gone, everything's dark, and man, it definitely sounds like that. It's very all encompassing, and again, like I said earlier, this is where Nurse with Wound shines most. And I haven't listened to a lot of Nurse with Wound, but I've listened to quite a few albums, or I've skimmed some, about like 7 or so in total, right? If we count those, maybe 10, right? I have like 3 or 4 bought over there, some I haven't bought yet. But the thing I like about him most is on every project he does, it's very different, but still sounds like him. And he has, what he does is he's able to create these sonic pictures. They're very detailed, more of a minimalist, but usually they're very detailed. There's a lot of different things going on, and they paint a very clear sonic picture. It's a very specific palette, and you can almost picture a scene in your head. And this has a lot of that. It's very detailed, a lot more than the first EP. And actually, there's so much going on here. It actually justifies the whole 22-ish minute runtime, actually. And again, I couldn't tell you what's going on, but something to do with a shipyard or something, or at least something to do with like ruined ships in some place. They mention it in the start, where again with this first person almost kind of view that David Tibet is speaking, and you're going through the bent trees and all this stuff, and and I don't know what it is, but there's quite a few albums where Nurse with Wound is experimenting with shipwrecks and things also to do with them. I guess he just mainly likes the atmosphere, so I couldn't blame him. But back to this. There's a lot going on here. You have David Tibet speaking. You have the sounds, especially in the start. You have the sounds, like the first half. You have these sounds of waves and creaking ships. You have, oh man, there's so many things, and to be honest, I'm forgetting a lot of them. But it's an insanely detailed piece. You have different voices even. There's a part near the end where this little girl comes in and chimes, "Will you walk me, sir? Will you walk me this way?" And you get this fade in and this incredible wall of static noise, and then just kind of fizzles right back out. And that is a spectacular moment. It was really incredible to experience it the first time. And yeah, there's a lot going on here. The very end of the song, we get another rendition of the lullaby sung by David Tibet. Not whispered, just properly sung. And again, it's creepy. There is I don't know if it's official or not, but when I reacted to all these three, which I did on my channel, this has a official or unofficial music video, and it is very well done. I do suggest, if you're going to listen to the song how I did it, or sit in your room, have it on a big screen, and just stare at it just the entire time, and just fully, let it envelop you. Because the video, which is basically this album cover with some effects on it, and the lyrics as well, it does really add a lot to the immersion of it. And yeah, that's about it. This is just a really amazing trilogy. I wouldn't say it's perfect, but I feel like as you get more and more through it, it becomes more and more entertaining and visceral and just a better experience. Again, I'd probably say that the first EP is like a 7 or 8. The album is like an 8 or 9. This is a 10. This is a very phenomenal piece of music right here. The entire trilogy itself, I can round down to like an 8. But if I had to give them separate scores, 7, 9, 7, 8, and 10, something like that. It is just an amazing experience. It really is. And yeah, that is going to be it for this video. I thank you for watching. If you want to subscribe. I tend to try and cover artists that are not mainstream that often, because, when it comes to review channels and critics nowadays, it's all the focus is on the main the mainstream stuff, right? I want to cover artists like this, artists that deserve some more attention, or maybe they're being forgotten, maybe some kind of cultural phase of passing, whatever it may be, right? Um, so if you want to expand your musical palette, and you want to get into some really good music that you probably won't hear anywhere else, here you go. There you go. Consider subscribing. I also am going to release some albums of my own very soon. Stay tuned for that. And that's gonna be it for this. Thanks for watching this long if you have, and have a good one.